evening, everybody. My name is Gertrude Mache, and I am here in beautiful Wellington, New Zealand. Welcome to Speaking from the Heart and how to land your first TED Talk. In this webinar, I'm going to focus on how to get clear on your unique idea. Throughout my years of coaching people how to speak, it has surprised me that a lot of people feel they have an urge, feel they have a message, but they are not really clear about the uniqueness of their idea and how they can get it out there. So one of the most important factors in landing a TED Talk is your idea. So while credibility, experience, awards, and connections can help, your idea is the core of your application. Please don't ever forget that. So before beginning the TEDx application process or any speaking application process, come to think of it, you must first get 100% clear on your unique idea. And I'm hoping that throughout this webinar, by giving you examples of things that I have done, I'll help you get a little bit more clarity in terms of what you're going to do about your idea going forwards as well. So take evidence or observations and draw a larger conclusion in how to get about what makes a good idea for a talk. So when you're looking at something, it has to either be something new, it has to be something surprising, it has to be something that challenges a belief or an old idea in new light. Now, a lot of you know that I have done 3 TED Talks. I've been invited 5 times to speak on various TED platforms, missed the other 3 opportunities for personal reasons. But I have branded myself as an expert in an African philosophy called Ubuntu. It's not a new idea. It is an ancient philosophy that I am trying to bring to the mainstream. So keep in mind that a new idea doesn't have to be groundbreaking or revolutionary. The lens for how you view or portray that idea can be the difference between the common idea and a unique idea. Your initial idea may just be common. So for me, Ubuntu is an operating system by Linux. And a lot of geeks, a lot of people in the world know that word just based on this operating system. So I wanted to claim back something that I feel is very African, that was misappropriated and not acknowledged, where the ideas, the principles behind this piece of software came from. And I started giving presentations and talks about Ubuntu. I wrapped the philosophy into my personal life story. And before I knew it, I'm now able to talk about Ubuntu from a personal perspective. I'm able to talk about it from a philanthropic perspective, a social justice perspective. I've just done a presentation on Ubuntu in leadership. So you can position yourself in so many different ways, talking about the same thing, but just reinforcing and elaborating on an idea that you already know that is common. So it doesn't have to be very, very unique. So however, your ability to creatively remix and find connections to other ideas and parallels is what will make your idea very, very unique. So I'm going to take you through a worksheet that's designed to help you flesh out your idea worth spreading. But before we begin, give yourself complete freedom to answer the following questions honestly and openly. Your best idea is centered around what you are most passionate about. And I keep on trying to emphasize this, that when you talk about something you have a passion about, it's not work anymore, it's not hard anymore. So find your passion, find a way to communicate your passion, and magic will happen from there. So a quick note, in this worksheet, we are not naming your talk. We will do that much, much later. Right now, it's all about just fleshing out that unique idea that you feel is worth spreading. And hopefully, in this workshop, you will come up with a unique idea for your TED Talks based around what we're going to go into. So let's dive right in. Okay, are you ready? Number one, I want you to think about 3 potential ideas that you want to share. So when I started off on my journey, I had just finished writing a book. And my whole idea was, how can I position a TED Talk so that I can generate some book sales? It worked like a charm because my presentation at the time was called Born on the Continent Ubuntu, which is the title of my book. And it led into my getting opportunities to sell that book by lecturing at universities and colleges all over the world. And when that happened, I am selling my books by the box load as opposed to one by one. So, what are the 3 potential ideas that you want to share? Something that is burning in your heart that you feel that the world should know. It could be something that you feel will change the world. Because remember, TED organizers are looking for change makers. They are looking for thought leaders, those people with these unique ways of thinking that could be spread through their platform. So in this module, I will send you an ideas tracking spreadsheet so you can keep populating that with your ideas. It's a great resource for you to test and rank your ideas as well. For the moment, only think about the 3 ideas that you want to share, and I will show you where to go from there. Now, this is a time for you to let your creative juices flow. So answer the following questions with as much detail as you can. In fact, the more detail you can give us at this point, the better. So here are the things that I want you to take into consideration as we move forward. So what fires you up in the world? Whether it's anger, whether it's passion, whether it's excitement, or all 3, what fires you up? For me personally, when I moved out of Africa and came to live in the Western world, I found that people were very disjointed. People didn't communicate and connect on a very authentic level. I grew up in Africa where you talk to everybody you meet, every single human being you bump into, whether you're in a grocery store or you are on a bus or on a train. In Africa, we talk to random strangers. When I moved to London for the first time, I lived in a society where people didn't look me in the eye. And I actually felt as if I was disappearing because in Africa, your very existence hinges on all of the people around you. Very, very different way of living, a different way of being to people in Western countries. So it became my passion to try and show people a different way of being. And I wrapped my story around my personal journey and illustrated this African philosophy in the sense that I am a sum total of every single human being I've ever met. Every single person that has crossed my path has made an impression on me. They have left an impact on me, and it has really helped me craft a beautiful way of communicating what Ubuntu really is. The next thing I want you to think about is what pulls your heartstrings? What's a cause that makes you feel empathy for that particular cause? What's going on in the world that makes you upset? Again, I can only go back to myself. What pulls my heartstrings are children. I have a soft spot for particularly disadvantaged children who are growing up in developing countries with no education, no access to a meal every day, clean drinking water. And because I'm a mother of 3, that really bothers me. So all of my projects, all of my speeches, I always make reference to my philanthropic work, the different organizations I've gotten involved in. And I find that my tribe, my ideal avatar or client or person that I'm trying to reach through my TED Talks feels the same. So when you find out what pulls your heartstrings, you're going to find people who think like you, who act like you, who will get this message. And remember what I said in my last webinar, that in any presentation or talk you will ever give, there is a 33% rule. 33% of people will absolutely love you. They will adore you. They will hear your message. They will take action. 33% of people will hate you. So please be prepared for haters. I've had a lot of clients that I've coached to get on TED. And when they start reading the reviews and the comments that come up from their TED Talks, they get really upset. But I have to remind you that there will be people who just do not like your message. Those are not the people that you're talking to. The last 33% of people are just indifferent. They don't give a damn. They aren't concerned about what you're talking about. So your speech is not for everyone. And if you can go into a TED event knowing that, then you know that you can talk to the heart of the 33% of people who think like you, whose heartstrings are pulled in the same way as you are. And so you will land a very, very effective talk. I've also said, what's going on in the world that's making you upset? Right now, Black Lives Matter is a huge, huge, huge issue for me personally, because I'm chocolate brown. I am affected by this. And when I hear of another person of color who is suffering in a different part of the world, it really bothers me. It really upsets me. The second thing that I get upset about is climate change. So, what is it for you that's going on in the world that upsets you? That could be something that you could talk about. Right now, we have the COVID pandemic, and there are people who don't believe in vaccines. We're living in a modern world with technology, and there are some people who are skeptical, who don't believe in vaccines, who don't even realize that by them not being vaccinated, they're going to affect the people around them as well. They're going to make decisions for their children. Those kids have to go to school with other people's children. So for me personally, it bothers me. So think about the things that affect you, that are happening in the world right now, and see if maybe your idea could come out of one of those things. Okay, next question. What do people ask about you? What are you uniquely qualified to talk about? So remember when I said in the very beginning that you have to be passionate about your idea. I'm known to speak about an ancient African philosophy called Ubuntu. I've managed to place it in the workplace. I've managed to put it in leadership, in the boardrooms. I have managed to put it in schools. It's all about empathy, compassion, collaboration, and connection. So, what do people know you for? And you know the things that you love to discuss, the thing that people come to talk to you about. Maybe that's where your TED Talk lies. Where is your passion? What do you like to talk about the most? So, if you've written a book or want to write a book, why did you do it? Or why will you do it? I would love you to answer that question with just one sentence. I know it's very, very difficult to describe why you would write a book, but think about your chapters in that book if you were to write one, to collect the ideas of the things that you care about. This is a great way to get a book deal. I have worked with clients who went on stage with an idea for a book, gave a presentation, and the next thing, they got an agent who represented them and they got a 6 to 7 figure book deal. So that can happen to you as well. Think about those things that you want to write about. And when you're writing a book and you're fleshing out the structure of the book, you will abbreviate what are the chapters that you want to cover within that book. I'm actually writing a book on Ubuntu and creating more TED Talks based on this African philosophy. So thinking about writing a book is really good. So knowing what you know in your career, in your relationships, or there may be some myths, some legends, some misconceptions that people just need to know about. That again could be something that you could focus your TED Talk on. Going back to your career, again, you are speaking from a position of strength. You are an authority on that particular subject matter, and you could probably talk about it with one arm tied behind your back. Myths. Right now, there's so many conspiracy theories around COVID that could be an anchor for a really powerful and effective TED Talk. And those misconceptions that people have about other people, about places, about things, great place for you to anchor the possibility of your TED Talk. Our next question, is there anything that frustrates you about the way people think about your career, your life, or your circumstances? Very recently, I have been helping an amazing woman ghostwrite a book about being on death row for 27 years. And until I started talking with her and really getting into her mind and finding out how she got there in the first place, I always had the wrong impression of people who get on death row. This poor woman was kidnapped from her playground when she was 15 years old in high school by a drug lord in New Orleans. She ended up being a sex slave, being trafficked, and shot this man when she was 19 years old, trying to escape when she had already a child with him. She was put in prison for 27 years. 27 years. So, is there anything that frustrates you about the way people think about your life? And when I'm referring to this new client of mine, I found that she had lived a very, very difficult life. And sometimes people judge. We look at people on face value and we don't realize that they have been through a lot to get to the point where they are. So think about things in your life, think about your career, think about your circumstances, anything that frustrates you in terms of the way that people think about the way you live. Now that your thoughts are out of your head and onto paper, let's take a look at what makes a unique idea worth spreading. Your worthy idea may have three main components. It must have these three main components. Number one, it has to meet an unmet need. What do we mean by that? That somewhere out there is a yearning for more information, an inquisitiveness about the subject matter, a service that's not being provided, a new health system that needs to be invented, whatever that is. Something that meets an unmet need is really effective for a TED Talk. The next thing is the domain of authority. Are you an authority on that particular subject that you want to talk about? Best place to go, like I said earlier, is your own life. We are an authority of our lives. And if you can wrap your TED Talk with live examples of the things you've gone through, the frustrations you've experienced, you will end up being very, very effective. And the last thing is you must have passion, a passion to share this idea. And if you can draw three circles with these three factors, where they converge in the center, is the sweet spot for your idea worth spreading. So go back to your answers from the worksheet I've just given you and circle or put a star next to any of your responses that fall into any of these three categories. This is the best way to select out of your content, out of your life, what you can focus on. Now, comparing your short answer responses with your initial three ideas, pick one idea that calls out to you the most. I always say to people, look for your lowest hanging fruit, because it's like picking fruit from a tree. We are all trees. We have branches and aspects of us that we can choose from. But if you pick that idea that makes you wake up every day and want to talk about it, you're going to be very, very impactful. Now, keep that idea in mind as we move on to the next session on how to finally decide. Okay, I'm back. Let's move forward. So, number one, what need in the world are you currently meeting? I'll give you an example. The need in the world that I'm currently meeting is the significant rise in youth anxiety rates, as well as depression and suicide, and presenting a three-part solution that addresses the root of this issue. That's a really good and simple example that you can follow in crafting that top idea that you're going to focus on. For people to truly pay attention, they must have a reason to listen. Therefore, your idea must either solve a problem or realize an opportunity for the audience. It must be valuable to them. People don't always know that they have a need or an opportunity, and that's fine. In those circumstances, you'll spread a good part of your talk explaining why they do or would. No matter what, your idea needs that. No matter what, your idea needs that reason to exist. This is our next exercise. In one sentence, write your answer to this question or to this phrase. The need I'm currently meeting is. For me personally, the need I'm currently meeting is making people aware of a different way of being, a different way of existing by spreading the Ubuntu philosophy. The need for connection, the need for empathy and compassion in communities worldwide. Now, let's look at the next issue we talked about before. In Dominion of Authority is asking, what are you uniquely qualified to talk about? Here's the answer, an example based on the previous question we asked or we posed. I am uniquely qualified to talk about youth anxiety and mental health because I was one of those statistics. I'm addressing, and I have a unique perspective as a 20-year-old, having also spoken to thousands of youth and educators about this issue. So now you're kind of justifying why you are the expert. When I answer this question for me in terms of the Ubuntu philosophy, I'm uniquely qualified because I'm African. And I have lived and breathed this philosophy all of my life. I've shared it with thousands of audiences around the world as an inspirational speaker, and I really know the impact of what Ubuntu can do for communities. So there are through lines in everyone's life and career. These are themes that connect the sum total of your education, your experience, your profession, or otherwise. And that's your domain of authority, and your idea needs to be closely connected to that. I hope that's making sense. The next thing we're going to do is, in one sentence, write your answer to this phrase. I am uniquely qualified to talk about blank because blank. Awesome. You're doing really well so far. I hope this is all making sense. If it's not, I am an email away. Email me and I will help you flesh this out. The last thing we're going to think about now is, what are you passionate about? And what gets you fired up? What puts that fire in your veins and makes you want to get up and advocate for a certain cause or do what you do? Here's an example again, based on the previous things we've been talking about. I am so fired up about solving the youth anxiety and mental health crisis because I know what it feels like to suffer from severe anxiety. And I know a way that anyone suffering can replace their anxiety with peace and purpose. So you're really expressing that you have a solution to anxiety. And that's what people are looking for in a TED Talk. If you are excited about your idea, your audience will feel it. Now is the time to let it rip. What's your message the world needs to hear? What's the thing that is burning inside you with a flame of passion? I can't emphasize this enough. So, in one sentence, write your answer to this. I am so fired up about ... because. Now you know. You know what your idea word spreading is. Okay, things I want you to think about going forwards. Number one, how is your idea going to serve the audience? Number two, why are you qualified to talk about it? And number three, why are you excited and passionate about this message? And in one sentence, you have to be able to say what this idea is. What is the idea you want to share? And I'm going to give you a few examples just to jolt your mind and get you to really think seriously of what that could be for you. Example number one, rock bottom is a catalyst for growth and success if you choose to find the opportunity. Number two, the youth anxiety epidemic can be solved by focusing on external pressures, the misuse of social media, and the lack of mindfulness coping mechanisms. Number three, the key to skipping small talk and connecting with anyone goes down to one simple approach. And number four, great leaders inspire action by starting with why. So, the idea you want to share is, are you getting closer and closer and clearer by doing these exercises? I want you now to take a moment and read over your idea and check if it has the following things. And these are crucial. First thing you have to check for is clarity. Your core message has to be expressed in a single sentence. If you can't do this, you need more clarity. Number two, passion. Your core message is something that you truly believe in with every single cell in your body. If you're not feeling it, it's not your core message. And number three, what do you know about this core message? Can you draw stories from personal experience? Have you done research around this topic? What I've also found in terms of sharing knowledge is you can use case studies. Even if you haven't had the experience yourself, you can make reference to case studies that you have researched and add them into your knowledge base as well. So congratulations. By now, you should have your idea worth spreading. If not, it's okay. Go back to the beginning of this video and use your idea spreadsheet that I will email you to track your ideas so that you can compare them and find the best possible one out of all of the ideas. Now, let me give you an idea check. A few things that you can do that will really help. One action step is think of 3 people whom you respect. Send them a text or a call explaining that you're applying to do a TED Talk and you want to run your idea by them. Share your idea with those people in 1 sentence. Ask them 3 questions from the above diagram. If you cannot articulate your idea in 1 sentence, I will reiterate this, you need more clarity. Albert Einstein said, if you cannot explain it simply, you don't understand it well. You have to be able to explain your idea to the average Joe. Dumb it down like you're talking to an 8-year-old. So this is a great way to test your understanding and your ability to articulate in 1 sentence what you're all about. You can always follow up with more information about your idea, and you can include your answers from the Venn diagram above and add that to the responses. Share, get feedback, refine, and improve. That is the formula. You can never hit on an idea the first time. It's just not possible. And once you hit on that one unique idea, it's time for the fun task of naming your talk. And that would be our next webinar. So I'm going to pause here for a second, and I'm going to go to questions that all of you have asked me in the past and answer them now so that you get the most out of this webinar, things that I wouldn't normally think about. As you know, before I do any webinars, I normally email people a questionnaire that I want you to fill out, because I know what I know so much in terms of how to land a TED Talk, but I don't know what you need to know. So at any point, please feel free to bombard me with questions, because they help me refine the content that I'm putting together to help you land your first TED Talk. So we're going to touch on a few questions that were asked, and I hope this will give you clarity. Question number 1 was, how can I make my message clear? I'm going to record a video on how to work out your life timeline. And a timeline is a basic graph that starts on the day that you were born to where you are now in 5-year incremental chunks. And you will find that the day you were born, life is wonderful. You have made it into this earth. You are a miracle. And throughout your life is going to zigzag with ups and downs and ups and downs. And those zigzags are the things that go right, the things that go wrong, the things that go right, the things that go wrong, the things that go right, the things that go wrong. There is an amazing TED Talk called The Secret Structure of Great Talks. I recommend you find it on the TED.com website. A researcher researched the best speeches in the world by Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, all of these famous orators. And she found that there is a rhythm to the best talks in the world. And they're based on the speakers starting perhaps at the bottom with the current life. I'll take Martin Luther King's speech, for example. He talks about the condition of African-American people in the United States, and life isn't very good. And then he takes you up to the possibility of the dream, when things can go really well, and he holds you with a dream for a few minutes. He then takes you back down on that graph on the condition of African American people in the United States during the Civil Rights Movement and how difficult life really is. And he then takes you back to the dream. So there is a rhythm to the speech that goes up, down, across, up, down, across, up, down, across. And you can do this with a timeline that I'm going to include in this workshop so that you can map out your life story. And what will happen is you can create several timelines and several speeches using this very simple graph. For example, I could do a timeline of my speaking career, the year that I started, the things that went wrong, the things that went right, the things that went wrong, the things that went right. And out of each of those key points, the highs and the lows are where my message should be. Everything else in between is not as crucial as those ups and downs, those highs and those lows. You can literally craft an entire presentation on that. I could do another keynote on my personal life. And it could start with my relationship with my ex-husband, getting married and everything was wonderful. And then things didn't go right. And then things went wrong. Those are ups and downs in a personal relationship. You could craft another presentation that way. Another example with a timeline is my journey as an entrepreneur. I could decide to do a TED Talk on how to be an entrepreneur or how I got to this point. Again, any successful entrepreneur will tell you that there's been lots of ups and lots of downs. It's such a simple, simple way of getting clarity with your message and knowing what to leave out and what to keep. So I'll be sharing that with you in the next module. The next question that was asked was, because right now people are presenting online a lot, there's very few opportunities to speak in public places unless you're living here in New Zealand like me. So what kind of background do I need to have? I always say to people, be very, very conscious about what is behind you when you're doing a TED Talk. You're probably better off standing in a room with a blank wall or not too many things that are busy behind you because you don't want people to be distracted. My background right now is not exactly 100% perfect. I've got that reflection of the mirror that's a little bit distracting. I've got all my flowers, and if I move my head, things kind of shift and change. So I'm really glad that question came up because I'm sitting in this spot and I don't normally do my my recording sitting here. But thank you for sharing that. Be very, very conscious about where you are sitting and what is behind you. And just to bring your energy into your presentation, stand up if you have to. It actually makes you more present when you're speaking instead of doing it sitting down. Unless you've been speaking for a long time, it's very, very difficult to put all of your energy into the presentation and to use your body to speak. And because you can't see your audience reacting and responding, especially if you're a new time speaker, it's really difficult. Right now, I'm just speaking to my computer, but I know that you guys are listening. I know that hopefully my humor is coming through and I'm connecting with you and inspiring you to work on your TED Talks. It's an art that comes with practice. And I can't emphasize enough that practice is the only medicine to get perfect when you are presenting online and even in person. The next thing that somebody asked was, are there any specific requirements when you are putting together a TED Talk? One of the most specific requirements is that it has to be unique. TED organizers are looking for those unique people in the world who bring a completely different aspect to the world, different ideas that are worth spreading. So think about that. It's very, very important for you to get clear. What are they actually looking for? And is your idea unique enough for them to say, yes, we want you on this stage? Awesome. More questions. So my next question, which I found really fascinating, was how do I tell my story with emotion without being emotionally charged when getting my message across? I always say to my clients, your vulnerability is your strength, but I know what you're trying to say. It's how do I hold it all together so that I don't break down completely while I'm sharing my message? If you feel that your subject matter is very, very personal and you get emotional when you're communicating it, you almost have to tell it like you are watching a movie about somebody else. You have to extract yourself from it and not relive the emotional experience that you went through while you're telling the story. But what I do recommend is put as much emotion as you can. And look, if you feel like crying when you have to cry, take the time to do that. They say that the best orators are people who get you to feel something when they speak. Unless you can move your audience to laugh or to cry with you, to feel something, your talk is going to land very, very empty. So harness those emotions. A lot of people don't even know how to use them. So if you feel that you're going to be emotional when you speak, make that choice. It could be the best presentation you ever give. The other thing that was asked was, how do I make my speech more interesting? People are interested in things that draws curiosity when you touch on something they didn't know already. You want to constantly be posing questions, getting people to say yes or to say no. Or if you ask a question, you can say to the audience, stand up, everybody in this room who's been divorced, or put your hand up if you have gone through a recent breakdown. Get people to interact physically. That makes for very interesting speeches, but don't do it too much. You might want to do it somewhere in the beginning, somewhere in the middle, somewhere at the end, not consistently getting people to do stuff. Make it interesting that way. So that's where we're going to end today's webinar. I thank you for tuning in, and I will be back again with the next module. And hopefully all of these are helping you refine your idea worth spreading, and we will move together and see you get on the TED platform. So this is Gertrude here in New Zealand. Thank you to all of you who've tuned in today. Bye for now.